Hi Sarah, Jolene here. I want to give you a couple of tips on the artwork for your CD cover. So I'm not sure how this happened because I'm not seeing the type looking this way in your Illustrator file. Maybe it's there and I'm just not seeing it. But where these letters are overlapping, I think it's making it a little bit difficult to read. And then I'm definitely not seeing this where these letters are kind of um, distorted or something. And then the saxophone for the J in jazz, love that idea. But using a photograph like this that doesn't have all that much detail and is kind of laying on top of the type, um, I think it could be done in a better way. So let's go over to your Illustrator file and take a look at a few things. Well, let me go back to Photoshop for a second. I'm going to show you how I redid things for this, and then I'll in your Photoshop file, and then we'll go back to the Illustrator file, and I'll show you how I did it. So I'm going to turn these two off. This is new artwork that I've put in here. After I did some things with the type. Notice it's not overlapping here, so it's just more pure now, easier to read. And then I broke this all up, this type. So again, it's easier to read. I also used a different ampersand and I made it a slightly different color. So now when we see this, we really read tail wags and all that jazz. So visually, it's guiding us on how we're saying the words and the cadence of those words. And you'll see that I used a different saxophone here. So I'm going to take you over and show you how I did all that. So let's go back to Illustrator. There it is. So I took the type you already had. Love these fonts that you chose. This is where I broke this up into tail wags and then all that jazz. And then I used this saxophone. So how did I do that? Let me bring over a web page where I did a web search and found this clip art. Here's how I found it. I Googled saxophone, and then I went to tools right here and told it I just wanted to see clip art. And so you see there's lots of different choices and lots of fun things. I love this right here, but it's not quite right to go with the type that you have. So doing a quick look here, the closest thing I found was this one. So I copied this art. I just did a right click and did copy image, came over to the Illustrator file. Let me make this smaller and I'll show you. I pasted it here and then I did an image trace on it. So here's image trace, and so I've got it, tracing result, black and white, and I'm going to go ahead and click preview and see what happens. Okay, really bad result, right? So we're going to zoom in here so we can see it closer. And I'm going to move the slider, excuse me, for threshold. Ah, look at that. Already it's much better. So if I go all the way over, it turns to black. And if I go all the way over this way, it turns to white. So if I come back here, now I'm looking to refine these shapes and this shape right here. So by doing it just a little bit at a time and watching it move, I think maybe I went a little bit too far. So I'm going to come back this way until I see. Okay, I think that right there is pretty much the best result we're going to get. So I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to go to Object, Expand, and then say OK. And that's what turns this into a vector graphic, so it has handles and anchor points that we're going to use right now. So I'm going to switch over to my Direct Select tool. And what I want to do is delete these 4 anchors, which is going to take this black away. So I'm going to go to the pen tool and minus, and then click on all four of these to subtract them. One more. Okay. So now I've got my saxophone. I'll make it black. And then that's what I brought over here. Oops, make that bigger. Make it smaller. Hold down Shift to keep it in proportion. And then I dragged it over into here until the size, sorry, I'm going up and down here, until the size seemed properly proportionate and the tilt of the saxophone seemed right to me. You know, you could do something more like that. That would be just fine. But I did something like that. And I also went in and did some kerning of the type. Let's see. If we look at this, not that one, it's not the same type. I moved some of the words closer together because they were so spread out. So if you triple click, you can go into what's called isolation mode. And then I can select just these three pieces by themselves, and I can either use my arrow key to move over or just do it with the mouse. The other thing I made sure is that these were lined up. The I and the L and the L and the L. I thought that looked really nice. So then I selected all of this, copied it, went back to Photoshop, and I pasted it. And there that is. And that's on this layer. So that's the tail wags. And then on this layer is the ampersand. And I'm going to show you how I did that in a second. Still spelled it wrong, but you get the point. And that's the one up at the top. Okay, so how did I do this? First of all, I love ampersands, and sometimes the ampersand that comes with a particular font is not all that exciting. This is the one that comes with this font. So I made another ampersand and selected it like this, and then kind of, well, let's move this so we can see what's happening as we go. Let's go back to this now. So I can see, you can see as I move my mouse over these, it's showing me different ampersands. And you could look at every single one, but when I got to this one, which is from a font called Futura Chopro, which is a font I think I bought, but you can look for a fun one. So here's the one I thought would be fun for this type. Copied it, went back to Photoshop, and then I pasted it right here. And I pasted it oversized because I wanted to emphasize it and give it a little bit of styling. And then I put some special effects on it. It was just black, but I thought we needed something to make it stand out a little bit so that when we read it in our mind's eye, in our mind's voice, if you will, we're going to emphasize the word and. So let me get off of that. So tail wags and all that jazz. See that? So then I added these special effects to it. Color overlay, made it a light gray, which actually didn't seem to do anything until I put this pattern on it, which is this one right here. And then I also added a drop shadow. And you could also add a drop shadow to this if you want. So that's pretty much how I did it. So I'm going to turn this off and turn these back on. So we'll take a look at that again. So we go from that to this. Oh, and there's one other thing I recommend you do. Since this artwork, which is really fun, especially the way you did it with the duotone, it kind of ends abruptly right here, and I assume that's because that's the way the original photo is. So so that it might look a little better if you just let it bleed off like that. Maybe you make this a little bit bigger. I turned off your guides, and it looks like we have, yeah, 1/4 inch guides. Okay, that's good. You know, maybe something about like that, and maybe we move this, oops, not that, this over a little bit, so it's all inside these 1/4 inch guides. That's it.